Hi, my name is McLaughlin. This is my reflective vlog for week 4. This was Surrealism week. This was a pretty interesting week because the genre of Surrealism is probably the most unique genre we've done so far, because it's a genre based more on visuals and stuff like that, and less than telling a narrative, more on like visual effects. So this is more of a week where we're testing out different techniques and stuff like that. If we're talking overall in the week, if I just give an overall basis for this week, I think I've done pretty well. I thought it was a pretty decent week, to be honest. Mostly because it was kind of more of an experimental week, and I was able to kind of test around with things I really understood genre and stuff like that. And also, now that I've got used to this, my 4th week, 2 and 3 are the same. Week 1 was an introduction. I've kind of now know I've got a pattern. I know how to kind of plan myself out and do that. So that was the week. This week was a tiny bit different. As you can see from the dates, it was Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, because we went in on Wednesday because of a college thing going on, so that's pretty unique. Also, the setup has slightly changed. You might remember last week I was using a script that I had mounted to my tripod. This ran into 2 issues. Issue 1 was that I keep looking at the tripod like this, and it made the video part look really weird. And secondly, it came off less natural and more wooden and stuff like that, and I wasn't really getting the points I wanted across, and I ended up ad-libbing most of it. So I thought, get rid of the script. Here's another new thing. I've got a microphone. I'm using a USB microphone. This is connected to my PC and is currently using a voice recorder. So what I'm now doing in post is I'm going to cut the audio from this camera, shove in the audio from here and see if that works, just so I can get crisper, nicer audio. I'm also filming this during the day to try and let more light in. I've got a light box here and my windows putting light in here. This should maybe sort out the green screen issues I had last week. So that's my new setup, and let's just go straight into the first day, that was Tuesday. Okay, so Tuesday was the usual analysis and kind of understanding the genre. This was broken up into 2 things as usual. The first thing we done was look at 3 different films, surrealist films, especially scenes in surrealist films, and kind of break them down, how they are surrealist and what we can draw from them. I decided to do 3 pretty unique films actually. Fantastic Planet, that is a French animated movie that's very weird. Greener Grass, that's kind of this suburban comedy, and House or Hasu, that is a Japanese, I think, horror movie. I think this was a pretty decent task. I think I've done pretty well, but I do think it was the weakest task of the week, just because the other tasks were so strong. What I think I could have done is gone in more to kind of detail and surrealism and really kind of broke it down, that I think would have helped kind of strengthen my case, because I think especially the Greener Grass one was kind of lacking information. So if I was to do this again, or I had more time, I'd probably just go over it and probably do more research into the themes and what they wanted, and maybe put some quotes in from the director, so that kind of strengthens what the arguments I was trying to make in there are. But I think compared to say let's say the second week, that was music video week, I think I have massively improved in how I write these, but I still think there is areas to improve. And then the director case study, I decided to do on Stanley Kubrick. He's kind of a massive director. He done Clockwork Orange, 2001, those other things, Fear and Desire. I think this was a pretty good case study. I didn't really understand Stanley Kubrick. I got a lot of quotes in it because I found an interview that Stanley Kubrick done. As you remember from last week, I'm really trying to get interviews in from the actual artists I'm doing, because I think that really helps strengthen it. I do think I could have had more detail to this director case study. I think the quotes were good, but I could have gone into more detail and stuff like that, and that would have maybe made a better director case study. But overall, I think the director case study went pretty well. It felt detailed and stuff like that, and it felt like I was understanding the director. Obviously, I could have added more detail, and if I had more time, I would have gone into much more detail. But it is kind of I'm working on that day deadline that I'm really trying to push myself to, and with the 800 word limits, I think I've done pretty well. But overall, I think this was a good start to the week. I really understand the surrealist genre, and I really kind of got it by looking at looking at these movies, kind of being okay, this is what surrealism is. I feel like my movies, I could go into more detail, and I think if I was to do it again or have more time, I would go into a lot more detail, because I think that would help me with my surrealist film and really understanding the genre. But overall, I think it was a pretty good day. And next we're going to go into Thursday, because we skipped Wednesday. This was a bit of a bumpier day because it had it had the hours from Wednesday shoved in there. So, and this day we looked at experimentation. Okay, Thursday, this was the big kind of experimentation day. Like documentary week where we done the 60-second documentary, done 2 experimentations, actually 3 technical experimentations this week. I'll show some behind the scenes footage of what I done. So the first thing we done was a time lapse. A time lapse is basically where the camera, the tripod is stood still, kind of like what I've got now, with the tripod stood still, and you basically take a picture every about 1 to 3 seconds. I've done mine about every 3 seconds. You take a picture and then you kind of shove them all together in Premiere, slow it, make the pictures like really like small, like in like length, so like 5 seconds, like 0.5 seconds, sorry. And then you play them one after the other, and it creates kind of this sizzle reel, and it gives this kind of like weird, kind of daunting effect. And then you have hyperreel. Hyperreel is basically the same as a basically the same as the previous one, but hyperreel works by you move the camera. So what I done was go around the building, so this gives more dynamic shot and stuff like that, and makes it a bit more weird. And I actually did use this for my final project in this section, the Night of Sorrow. It was used for the opening to kind of create this daunting opening that I thought really worked really well. And then finally, the third thing we done was reverse audio. So this basically was where we would say something in reverse. In my case, I just done dog, as in God, and then walk backwards. And then in Premiere, we would flip the footage so it looked like we're walking forward. And it gave this really weird kind of effect. This can be seen like Twin Peaks and stuff like that. And I think it worked. I think I've done pretty well on this. I could have done a longer sentence and stuff like that, and I could have made it more detail, but you know, I think I managed to do this. But there was problems, so we're going to go into everyone's favourite segment, Problem Solving Corner. It's Brendan's Problem Solving Corner. Okay, problem one I had during filming was to do with filming, so taking pictures ready. The hyperreel, I found this very difficult to do because it's very precise. You have to get it very precise with the camera, and multiple times I mucked it up. I'll show some pictures and stuff like that where I mucked it up and how I mucked it up. And my final hyperreel, I think it understood the genre, and like it was technically a hyperreel, like it fitted the hyperreel kind of thing, but it just didn't feel right. And I feel like if I had more time to really understand a hyperreel, I could have made a better hyperreel that kind of was a bit more challenging for myself, because my hyperreel was kind of weak. And also, this goes into problem 2. My other task that we done was reverse audio was also weak. I had a massive issue with trying to work out how to say the thing in reverse, because I'm not really good at saying words. So I decided dog, because that's easy. And the end goal was pretty decent. I'll show it now. Okay, so that was the end goal. And I say that looks okay, but I feel like if I'd done a longer sentence or something like that, I'd done a bit more, kind of challenged myself a bit more, it would have looked better. And I could have used it more in my actual final video. Because my final video, it had reverse footage, but it didn't have reverse audio footage. And I feel like if I better understood how to do reverse audio footage, then I could have put that in my film. But the way I problem solved this was obviously just using an easier sentence. And then problem 3 was mostly just kind of like working out how to use these techniques and stuff like this, and it took me a lot of trial and error, I'll be honest. The time lapse was pretty easy because it's just taking pictures, but the hyperlapse was difficult and stuff like that, and the 60, so overall problem 3 was just kind of using these techniques and this equipment for the first time. So it was kind of difficult, and I think if I had more time I could have better understood it. But that was Thursday. I think overall, if I'm talking overall, I think it was a decentish day. It was an experimentation day, and I think I managed to experiment pretty well. I'd done all the clips, like I'd done them all to what they were meant to be, but I feel like I could have put in more effort into them, made them a bit better and a bit more stylish. But that was Thursday. Next we're going into Friday. Friday was the big kind of actually filming and editing. Prior to the night, like Thursday night, so it's like Thursday/Friday, I did do planning. I'll just talk about the planning quickly. How I plan is a bit weird. So what I do first is I'll show it on screen, but I basically do a rough plan, and this is where I kind of work out the story and kind of like that, and like I print it out and I just kind of scribble over it, and I work out kind of how I'm gonna frame shots and stuff like that, and then I turn it into more kind of condensed and more professional work. So I've turned, basically, as you can see from the sheet, there's a lot of pictures and stuff like that. I turned this into storyboards. My storyboards are pretty simple. They're kind of, because this is such a visually based film compared to the documentary and the music video and stuff like that, I decided to storyboard this entire thing. As you can see in the storyboards, they're kind of like, there's a lot of kind of detail in them. They're like very, no, I say a lot of detail. They're very simple. This is mostly just to work out the visuals and work out the angles. So when I create the storyboards, when I create the actual film, the storyboards kind of match up. And then I also turn it into a shot list. The shot list is actually really useful because I film mostly by myself. I can just kind of click them off as I go, so I make sure I get all the shots. That's kind of the planning, and then also I've done the usual risk assessment. That's where I basically look at risks. This shoot was pretty safe, to be honest. It was only really like risk infection because of COVID-19 at the moment, and the risk of slips, trips and falls, and that's always happened. But I think the planning went pretty well. I have this kind of, I'm very used to planning at this point. I've done a lot of risk assessments like that. I kind of worked out my own style of planning, so the planning went really well. And then it came to filming. I filmed during the morning. It was actually one of my quicker shoots. It only took me about an hour, 2 hours. That was pretty good. Mostly because A, I filmed it by myself, and B, a lot of the effects were actually in post. But we did have some problems, and we're going to go into Brendan's problem solving corner again. Okay, problem 1 was that my batteries actually ran out. I used 3 batteries and I forgot to charge 2 of them, so I only had 1 battery. And the batteries actually ran out near the end, and there was originally going to be a Stanley Kubrick-esque shot near the end where they look directly in the camera, but because of the kind of constraints I had with the battery and stuff like that, and for the flow of the story, I decided to cut this out. So that's something I'll remember next time. It's kind of like how I'll problem solve this issue is next time I'll make sure each night before I charge the batteries, I'll bring a charger with me so I can charge the batteries and stuff like that. Problem 2, I did have some problem with my lighting. Because originally in the 4 scenes that were going to be, so originally in the bit I'll show it now, is where you have 4 Brendans across the screen screaming. It was going to be 4 different lights. I did have some problems with lights and stuff like that. I didn't test out all the colours, so I tested out the red, and the red worked pretty well. I've used the red before, and that's in the main shots, so that's why they look a bit different. But when I used the other ones, they didn't do the designed effect I had on camera, and I thought it looked a bit weird. So what I actually done was I recorded it normally, and then in post I added the lights across them, and then like an overlay. I think this looks slightly better, and I think it like looks a lot better and like stuff like that. But the thing is, I should have tested out the lights before to kind of to make sure that they were working effectively, because I kind of had to think on the spot, and that wasted a bit of time. So next time I kind of want to test out more equipment and stuff like that, so I don't have the problem solved with the issue of put it in post. There wasn't really any other problems I had. It was a pretty clean shoot, to be honest. So that was problem solving corner for filming. So next I went into editing. Editing was this is the biggest edit I've done for the 3 videos so far, because the documentary was pretty simple edit, mostly because of just interviews, and the Shia LaBeouf music video was kind of difficult edit, but there was no post effects. This one had the most post effects, because every scene I had this rule basically that every scene would look distorted to kind of play into the surrealist film, except for the last scenes. So what I done was I took the video footage I filmed, and I basically messed around the contrast so it gave this weird effect. I've done this to all the clips, except from the end clips, kind of separate them, and I also use black and white to kind of make it even weirder. I think this looked really well. I'll show my timeline at the moment. It's a very kind of messy timeline, but I think this went really well, and the editing went really well. I done a lot of post effects, and it was a lot of problem solving and trial and error. One of the problems that I had was so the college computers for some reason do not like reverse audio. Reverse footage is basically where you reverse the footage. This can be seen in my movie where basically the person goes backwards. So what I had to do was I'd done all the effects in college, and then I went home because I used Premiere at home to edit and stuff like that, and I had to open up the footage. I mess around with it. So basically the problem was I can't edit a certain thing on college computers. The problem solving was I basically went home and done it myself. So the editing went pretty well, I would say. It was pretty simple, to be honest, and I think I really was able to kind of test out my editing skills, because I had a lot of quick cuts, a lot of like cutting down footage, a lot of messing around with effects and stuff like that. So the editing went really well, and overall, I think this day of filming such editing was one of my most successful days out of all the days, because obviously week 2, I was ill. Week 3, I was kind of like, I have my problems, but I got around them. I think this was a really good day. I was able to finish in about an hour, maybe 2 hours. I was able to mostly get the video done in the day, and it was a pretty simple shoot. I had some problems, obviously, but I managed to overcome them really well. I think I'm getting into the groove of this kind of, record, edit, get it done, and now that I'm thinking it through, I have a lot more time and stuff like that, and I'm really excited to kind of fully embrace this in the next couple of weeks when it comes to, when I'm doing parody week and stuff like that. So next we're going to go into the usual overall wrap up and review of Target. But this is the usual overall wrap up for the week. I think it was a really good week if we're talking overall. I think the biggest plus for this week was definitely my editing. I think my editing massively improved this week. I was able to really kind of test out my different editing skills and stuff like that, and really embrace editing. The other two genres were more based around kind of visuals and stuff like that, but this really was an editing task. And as I want to specialize in editing, because it's just an area that interests me the most, as you can see from these videos, I think I've done really well. So I'd say my main benefit or plus of the week was my editing. If we're talking minuses, if we're going to be talking minuses, I would say my biggest kind of negative or minus of the week was probably my surrealist film kind of breakdown. I feel, on reflection, the surrealist film didn't really work, and it worked, but it lacked detail and stuff like this. And I think this was something common in the week, that a lot of the tasks were acceptable, but they didn't really challenge me. So like the surrealist film, they were acceptable. I done what the task was to find a surrealist film and stuff like that, and but I didn't really go into detail. It's like the reverse video. I'd done it and I tested it out, but I didn't really challenge myself. So I would say that's the biggest minus of the week, and that goes into my target this week and next week. My target for next week, that would be probably challenge myself more, stuff like that, and really kind of really challenge. Like, look at a task and kind of work out to the fullest extent I can get out of it, instead of just going the easy path out. I think, I wouldn't say I'd done massively this week, but I started to kind of do and slip and stuff like that. So that's my biggest minus of the week, and the target of the week is to kind of challenge myself again. If we're talking about last week was to make a more detailed timetable, because I felt that I wasn't really organising myself that well. I think I actually did really embrace this week, as you can see from more planning documents, like storyboards and stuff like that, and like more of a shot list and stuff like that. This was a much more planned out surrealist film, mostly because compared to a documentary, this involved a lot more post-production and stuff like that, and a lot more kind of editing that needed to be planned out. So I think I really did embrace last week's target, and this is something that I'm gonna really try for the next weeks and stuff like that, and then the F&P, is to make sure that I plan myself effectively and really understand how to get this task done. So overall, this was kind of a shorter week. This was a bit of an easier week, to be honest, because I really like surrealism and I really like editing, and that was the week. Next week is a trip week. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a reflective vlog for that week, but it's been a pretty good week, and thank you for watching. This has been week 4, as in surrealism week.